it was. He paddled it with his large feet dangling over the side. But never a ripple did he make. Bilbo was sitting on the water's brink at the very end of his way and his wits, and is almost out of booze. When up paddled Gollum, his eyes glowing softly in the dark.
Bilbo jumped nearly out of his skin. He thrust the sword in front of him.
Luscious and splashes, my precious. I guess it's a choice feast. At least a tasty morsel it makes us.
Who are you?
What is he, my precious?
I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins. I have lost the dwarves and the wizard, and I don't know where I am.
What's he got in his hands?
A sword, a blade made of, by the elves. They make good wine, too. Oh, it was used in the Goblin Wars. It can sever your...
Perhaps you sit here and chat with it a bit, my precious. It likes riddles, perhaps it does it?
Gollum was anxious to appear friendly until he found out more about the sword and the hobbit, whether he was quite alone and whether he was good to eat.
Very well,
said Bilbo, who was anxious to agree until he found out more about the creature, whether he was quite alone, and whether he was fierce or thirsty for the drink.
You ask again?
What?
You ask first.
So Gollum hissed.
What has roots as nobody sees is taller than trees. Up it goes, and yet never grows.
Easy. Mountain, I suppose.
Which is not technically true. Mountains are growing all the time.
Science, he knows. Does it just easy? It must have a competition with us, my precious. If Precious asks and it doesn't answer, we eat it, my precious. If it asks us and we doesn't answer, then we does what it wants, eh? We shows it the way out, yes.
All right.
Said Bilbo, not daring to disagree, and nearly bursting his brains like spaghetti against the wall, like think of riddles that could save him from being eaten. All he could think of was an old one.
But a good one.
30 white horses on a red hill. First they chomp, then they stamp, then they stand still.
Two, but we only have 6, my precious.
Then Gollum asked the second. Isn't that the third?
I know, I guess. Voiceless paws, wingless flutters, toothless bites, mouthless mutters.
Half a minute.
Cried Bilbo, who was still thinking uncomfortably about being eaten. Fortunately, he had once heard something like this before, and getting his wits back, he thought of an answer.
Wind? Wind, of course.
Bilbo was so pleased that he made up one on the spot.
An eye in a blue face saw an eye in a green face. That eye is like to this eye, said the first eye, but in a low place, not a high place.
Gollum had been underground a very long time, and was forgetting this sort of thing. But just as Bilbo was beginning to hope that the wretch would not be able to answer, Gollum brought up memories of ages and ages ago.
That's from
Someone does this.
Wayne's World.
I'm narrator 3. Okay.
Cut off.
These above ground sort of riddles were tiring for Gollum, and they made him hungry too, because all he had was orcses, and they don't taste very nice, does it, precious? So this time, he tried something a bit more difficult and unpleasant.
Cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard, cannot be smelt. It lies behind stars and under hills, in empty holes it fills. It comes first and follows after, ends life, kills life.
But Bilbo had heard that sort of thing before, and the answer was all around him anyway.
Dog!
Bilbo still trying to think of a really hard one to gain time. He asked one he thought would be easy.
A box without hinges, key or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid.
But Gollum hissed and spluttered and did not answer.
Well, what is it?
Give us a chance. Let it give us a chance, my precious. Eggs it is.
Now Gollum thought it was time to ask something hard and horrible.
All things devour us. Birds, beasts, trees, flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones into meal. Slays kings, ruins town, and beats high mountain down.
Bilbo sat in the dark thinking of all the giants and ogres he had ever heard of, but not one of them had done all of these things. He had a feeling that the answer was quite different and that he ought to know, but he couldn't think of it. He began to get very frightened, and that is bad for thinking and drinking.
Gollum began to get out of his boat. He flapped into the water and paddled to the bank.
Bilbo could see the eyes coming towards him. His tongue seemed to stick in his mouth. He wanted to shout, "Give me more time! Give me time!" But all that came out was,
Time! Time!
Bilbo was saved by pure luck, for time was the answer.
Gollum was getting angry because he'd had too much to drink, and also tired of the game. It had made him very hungry.
6 of 4. So yeah.
He sat down in the dark by
You don't have to leave
Bilbo.
right now. After this.
It's got to ask us a question, my precious. Yes, yes, yes. Just one more question. Yes, yes.
But Bilbo simply could not think of any question with that nasty, wet, cold thing sitting next to him, pawing and poking him. He scratched himself, he pinched himself, still he could think of nothing but the bottle.
Ask us, ask us.
Bilbo pinched himself and slapped himself. And even felt in his pockets. I don't have any. There he found the ring he had picked up in the passage and forgotten.
What have I got in me pocket?
Not fair. It isn't fair, my precious. It is to ask us what he's got in his nasty little pockets.
Bilbo had been talking to himself, but Gollum had thought it was a riddle. Having nothing better to ask, Bilbo stuck to his question.
What have I got in me pockets? Is?
And why is it happy to see you? Sorry.
It must give us 3 guesses, my precious. 3 guesses.
Very well. Guess away.
Hands.
Wrong. Guess again.
Gollum thought of all the things he kept in his own pockets. Fish bones, goblin's teeth, wet shells, a bit of bat wing, a sharpening stone to sharpen his fangs on. He tried to think what other people kept in their pockets.
Knife.
Wrong. Last guess.
Gollum hissed and spluttered. Hiss and splutter some more, Gollum. Come on. And rocked backwards and forwards like the spoiled little boy he was. Slapped his feet on the floor, wriggled and squirmed. But he dared not waste his guess.
Time's up.
String or nothing.
Both wrong.
Bilbo jumped at once to his feet and held out his sword.
And now you must show me the way out.
Oh.
This has been Riddles in the Dark.
Thank you.